Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Obviously, this is a shocking and despicable assault.
Recognize this guy? The search for a suspect after a sleeping homeless woman is set on fire. Also,
is worrisome because it is just this recipe for something to go wrong.
Backcountry inexperience and a troublesome snowpack, the combination that could have deadly consequences. And
so introducing rapid testing is going to be an added layer of detection and protection.
the renewed push for rapid testing in BC's COVID-ravaged long-term care homes.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. Vancouver police are hoping you can help track down a suspect in a horrific crime. A woman sleeping outdoors set on fire. Our Dan Burr joins us live from where it happened in downtown Vancouver tonight. Dan?
Mike, it was mid-December around 4 a.m. A woman was sleeping behind me near those benches under this covered area on the plaza of the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, right across from CBC Television and CBC Centre, as we said, mid-December around 4 a.m. A warning, some of the video you are about to see is disturbing, but take a look at the suspect. That's him walking outside the theatre there. He's about 35 to 50 years old, said to be white, 5'5" to 5'10", wearing an Oakland Raiders jacket. Moments later, he goes up to the victim on the ground and sets her blanket on fire. You can see the flame there beginning to erupt, lit on her blanket, smoldering. Then there's another shot of the suspect in his jacket walking. You can see the distinctive Oakland Raiders design there. Eventually, the fire erupts, spreads to the victim's belongings, and burns her jacket. Thankfully, the woman jumps clear, although it's not clear how badly she may be injured. She appears to be white, in her 30s, with dark shoulder-length hair, and was wearing a gray, full-length button-up jacket. Police don't know who she is, and she didn't report the attack to police.
Obviously, this is a shocking and despicable assault that occurred against a vulnerable and marginalized member of our community. And we really would like to speak to anybody who has any information about what happened.
And you can see more of the video, plus some close-ups of the suspect and the victim on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Mike.
And Dan, this is the latest, most visible example of violence against people experiencing homelessness. What are homeless advocates saying about it tonight?
Well, at least one advocate we spoke to says she is heartbroken and she is appalled by what she saw, but says she knows that there is still a lot of stigma that people who are experiencing homelessness still face. Take a listen.
We see it in many small ways as well as these really shocking and traumatic ways as well. So these kinds of things do continue to happen despite, a societal kind of lean towards compassion in some areas.
As for why the victim did not go to police, York says she knows that many people who experience homelessness may have been traumatized when dealing with police or the legal system and may be more comfortable going to a community agency. Again, anyone who can identify the suspect or the victim is asked to call Vancouver Police. And once again, you can see more details plus that video on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Mike.
All right, Dan Burrett, live across the street at Queenie Plaza tonight. Thanks. Experts are urging BC backcountry users to get or upgrade their avalanche skills training. There have been 3 fatalities tied to avalanches already this year. As Andrea Ross reports, experts are worried a flood of newcomers mixed with a troublesome snowpack could have deadly consequences.
It's a banner year, and it helps that there's a lot of snow.
BC has had a pretty great start to the ski season, and guides say they're seeing more people than ever in the backcountry, likely because of COVID-19.
You can take that breath of fresh air, and you're thirsty for adventure, you're thirsty to get out there, and the backcountry is an amazing place to be.
But in the Sea to Sky area, a layer of crust deep in the snowpack has him and other guides worried.
Should anything go wrong, it's going to be a catastrophic avalanche.
That's why they're urging newcomers to get trained in backcountry safety.
is worrisome because it is just this recipe for something to go wrong. Add to that the fact that we have so many new people, or just so many people, period, in the backcountry, and the likelihood of that goes up.
The avalanche risk is high because of this persistent weak layer. It could catch people off guard.
It's less usual to see this kind of persistent weak layer in the coast mountain areas. And so it's quite possible that even more experienced users may not be used to dealing with an avalanche problem like this.
BC has already had 3 avalanche fatalities so far this year, with many other close calls.
We do know from our partners at BC Search and Rescue that they are having an unprecedentedly busy call-out season for this winter.
Experts say a transceiver, shovel, and probe are mandatory pieces of equipment to have in the backcountry. They can help save your life in an avalanche, but you need to know how to use them. And they say the best way to learn how is to take an avalanche skills training course.
An AST1 is a great way to just get a fundamental, just a baseline information on how to get out there safely, and just know when to go, where to get the information, who to partner up with, basics of, buddy checks and transceiver searching, companion rescue, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Avalanche Canada also has an online tutorial for backcountry beginners, a free tool to brush up on life-saving skills.
You need to really know how to do a rescue, an effective one, within 15 minutes.
But planning ahead and dialing it back can make all the difference.
Take the safe route, just be conservative and ski more supported terrain that's also got trees or anchors to anchor it in, and go out in good visibility with people who have the right skills to do so.
So you can enjoy the snow safely. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff now. The conditions, particularly here on the coast, really not good when it comes to avalanche situation.
Yeah, Mike, this is the active storm pattern that avalanche forecasters are warning about. Andrea mentioned deep, weak layers being activated over the next 24 hours. And even on the latest updates from Avalanche Canada saying don't be lured into the blue skies coming over the next couple of days. We have some very deep, weak layers and a lot of fresh snow. A lot of factors, as Andrea mentioned, but also very active storm cycle for the BC coast. We've had record snow at elevation and then record warmth down in the valley. So very unique combination. I want to show you what the satellite looks like right now. This is the leading edge of our latest atmospheric river, tapping into moisture all the way from the Philippines. That line bringing warm temperatures, rain, and winds all the way across the Pacific. We do have wind warnings in place to talk about. Metro Vancouver wind warnings for all of Metro Vancouver for overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. We also have rainfall warnings in place for Howe Sound, and the North Shore. We're expecting the most amounts, but the front will pass tonight. We'll see things clear out quite dramatically tomorrow, but the wind event will not be over. So it's behind the front that we're going to see the strongest of the winds for the south coast. I'll time that out for you coming up. Right now we'll deal with the rain, and then I'll get you through the winds, and then I'll get you to the sunshine, in that order.
Well, we'll look forward to that. Thanks, Joe. See you in a bit. Another 9 people have died from COVID-19 in BC. Our province's death toll now stands at 1,019. And 446 new cases are being reported tonight, in line with minimal evidence of a holiday boom in transmission. And active cases are now just over 5,000, the lowest in 2 months. There are now just over 58,500 cases here in BC. However, hospitalizations are slightly up to 368. 72 of those patients are in critical care or ICU. Just over 7,200 people are under active public health monitoring, and now more than 62,000 people in our province have been vaccinated. Another COVID-19 outbreak has been declared at a Vancouver hospital. This time it's Mount St. Joseph Hospital, making it the 10th in BC. The news was released by Vancouver Coastal Health on the faculty outbreak bulletin. The outbreak is in Unit 3C, and restrictions were put in place on the 11th. Health officials have yet to release the number of people infected or the number of deaths possibly connected to the outbreak. A renewed push tonight for rapid COVID-19 testing in BC's hard-hit long-term care homes. As of yesterday, there were at least 50 outbreaks in those facilities. As Zara Premji reports, advocates are renewing their call on the province to start rapid testing immediately, even though vaccinations have started.
As the death toll climbs and long-term care homes remain at the epicenter of the COVID-19 crisis, one question remains. Why not have rapid testing at all long-term care homes?
Now, the advantage of the rapid test is you get the results immediately, within 15 minutes. It can be done on site. It doesn't require any special machinery.
But those at the forefront of the pilot projects for rapid testing say it is being tested in at least 3 long-term care homes. There's just more research left to be done.
But I do agree that at some point, with the right data, there should be an effort to implement this on a wider scale in long-term care facilities.
But with vaccinations well underway, advocates fear the initial defenses against spread of the deadly virus, like a rapid test, are not top of mind anymore.
But I am nonetheless frustrated that time is marching on, outbreaks are continuing, deaths are rising. We do have some tools we could use.
Pilots taking place right now show rapid testing to be about 70% effective, and Dr. Bonnie Henry says that may not be enough to justify reallocating resources.
Do we have, 600 nurses go to each of our care homes to do the testing, or do we focus on some of the other important issues like reinforcing the screening and the infection control measures within the facilities?
But experts behind the research say it wouldn't be putting a heavy strain on nursing and current resources.
The rapid test that we're actively evaluating is relatively easy to use. It's almost akin to a home urine pregnancy test.
Dr. Sin says while he believes long-term care could benefit from rapid testing, a little more patience is needed. But he believes research could conclude in the next few weeks. And ultimately, it's the province's decision to implement it or not. Something BC Seniors Advocate wishes would happen right away.
Every life has value, and every life that can be saved from this virus, every attempt should be made.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
An air and sea rescue operation for a missing kayaker near Sooke has been scaled back, but the ground search is continuing tonight. Teams have been deployed for a third day trying to locate 38-year-old Timothy Ross. Ground crews expanded their search this afternoon, covering an area more than 70 kilometers from where Ross launched his kayak. The man set off near Sooke around noon Sunday and was expected to return just after 4 p.m.
Searching for any evidence of Tim, and we remain hopeful and that we can find something that would lead to some answers about what's happened.
A number of witnesses reported seeing Ross kayaking west toward Port Renfrew early Sunday afternoon. A volunteer group of pilots also continued its air search today. A vigil has been held today in honor of the man who died after being shot by police last Tuesday in Vancouver's downtown east side.
With taser, baton, pepper spray on their belts, why did officers choose not to use the less lethal means to disarm the man?
The shooting happened outside the Grace Mansion building on East Hastings Street and Princess Avenue just before 6 in the morning. The vigil was organized by VANDU, the BC Association of People on Opiate Maintenance, and Pivot Legal Society, with support from the victim's family. The Independent Investigations Office of BC is investigating the shooting death. Well, changes are coming to Strathcona Park and the homeless encampment there. While government organizations work to help people living in Strathcona Park move indoors to accommodations there, new amenities are being added. That means temporary 24/7 services to meet the basic health and safety needs of people living in the park. Services include a warming tent, a washroom trailer, and shower trailer. The new facilities will be operated by a nonprofit organization, and there will be security on site around the clock. Beyond that, new short fences are being erected in the park to delineate the encampment from the rest of the park. The Sea to Sky Gondola is suing its insurance brokers, alleging negligence after the cable was cut twice. The tourist attraction says the insurers failed to procure adequate insurance between the two acts of vandalism. The gondola's cable was cut back in August 2019 and again in September of last year. The suit seeks damages for alleged negligence and breach of contract, among other things. The vandalism caused upwards of $10 million in damages. Sea to Sky has a $250,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest and conviction. The husband of Chinese tech executive Meng Wanzhou says his wife is at increased risk of contracting COVID-19. Liu Xiaozhong was testifying in BC Supreme Court today, where Meng's lawyers are seeking to ease her bail conditions. Huawei's chief executive financial officer has been under house arrest in Vancouver. As Tanya Fletcher reports, Meng's husband claims her private security team may be endangering her health.
Meng Wanzhou is here in court to argue that she shouldn't have to be flanked by her security detail 24/7. In particular, she wants to be able to be free on her own during the day outside of curfew hours. Now, currently, Meng must drive everywhere with surveillance teams. She also pays for that security detail 24/7. And an affidavit was presented in court today from Meng's husband. He lives primarily in Hong Kong with their 2 kids, and he had been traveling to visit Meng in Vancouver every 2 to 3 months before the pandemic hit. He believes that Meng is at an increased risk of COVID due to the rotating roster of security guards. Now, also, she was a cancer survivor and currently has hypertension, and so because of that, they believe she is more vulnerable to the health risk. The husband took the stand today under cross-examination, and he made the argument that the family should be able to go out to malls, to coffee shops, to playgrounds, grocery stores without that security detail in such close contact. Keep in mind, the bail conditions don't prevent those activities from happening right now. He claims that the security guards are getting in the way of them spending time together as a family, but the Crown was quick to turn that around. Under cross-examination, they pointed out that there have been several instances where Meng has blatantly flouted the current COVID restrictions. Here's lawyer Richard Curlin, who's been following this case closely, explaining what was said in court today.
Restaurants were attended that seated more than 6 people. There were mask violations, social distancing violations. So the Crown effectively dismantled the defense line to justify extra time to go shopping and visit restaurants.
This also gives us a unique glimpse inside Meng's life on bail. Court is hearing about gatherings at lavish restaurants over the holidays, a house that Huawei has for employees alone, and private shopping trips into luxury stores that are shut down just for her. In fact, on the stand, Meng's husband was shown these photos taken by a CBC journalist in the spring and was asked him to count how many people were there, how many were wearing masks, none of them, to comment on the fact that no one was socially distancing. And so how does she claim to be worried that she's at a heightened risk of catching COVID? Now, these hearings are expected to last 2 days. A judge isn't expected to make a decision until at least Tuesday. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
A reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on CBC Gem, CBC Vancouver, also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. A desperate move in Ontario to try to slow the spread of COVID-19. Just ahead, reaction to that province's looming stay-at-home order. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, Joan Jones was a Nova Scotia activist who fought for civil rights for decades, the kind of person who should be honored for her work. So when her sister, Donna Bonner, came across some old fabric, she knew just how to keep her sister's memory alive. Colleen Jones has more on what she created.
When Joan Jones died over a year ago now, even the New York Times paid tribute to the woman who fought so hard in Nova Scotia for racial equality.
Oh yeah, she's right up there. She's looking down on me.
From her century-old home, Joan's sister Donna works in her dining room, long converted into a sewing room. Joan's presence, always present.
I can hear her laughing, I can hear her talking.
An unknown gift found in a closet after Joan died, blocks of fabric from Africa that Joan had used in her Halifax boutique.
And this one. There was all these pieces of material over here, and this was all filled up. This was filled up with all these samples, right?
What to do with them? Well, for Donna, a woman with always more than one project on the go, she just waited for a little inspiration while she kept finishing Christmas gifts and her many works in progress.
Sometimes you get a project and you got to sit on it and wait on it and wait on the epiphany to come, right?
Like a light bulb turning on, Donna knew what she would do, and one stitch at a time, she would create a memory quilt from the fabric Joan had stored, bringing her memory alive.
Each one of these is a square, like a little tiny square.
She just finished the project, and now Joan's quilt hangs in Donna's hallway. Every time she passes it and sees the African prints, she feels Joan's presence.
Every day I go by it, and then it's like, it's for her. Like, you know, you touch it and you could just, the memories come flooding back. You have a little moment where the tears fall, but you could just feel her spirit in the quilt, you know? Just, you know, that's her.
She says the quilt just feels like Joan and all she stood for.
This represents strength and respect and honesty and laughs and memories, and she always had me doing something.
And this doing something symbolizes the love she felt for her sister, one stitch, one square at a time. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Halifax.
And we'll be back in just a few seconds with more on the new restrictions on COVID-19 coming in Ontario. And we'll tell you the reasons behind Justin Trudeau's latest cabinet shuffle. Right now, take a live look at soggy downtown Vancouver at 6:21 on this Tuesday night. Ontario is under a state of emergency tonight, the second one since the pandemic began. And in just over 24 hours, a stay-at-home order comes into effect, and people can only leave on essential trips. As Mike Crawley explains, it's all in an effort to keep the province's healthcare system from collapsing.
Well, good afternoon.
The Premier gets straight to the point.
Effective immediately, Ontario is declaring a state of emergency.
With COVID-19 threatening to overwhelm the province's intensive care units, Doug Ford's government is imposing an order to stay at home. The exceptions? You can get groceries, see a doctor, go to a pharmacy, exercise, or go to work if it's deemed essential.
I know the stay-at-home order is a drastic measure, one we don't take lightly. Everyone must stay home to save lives.
But no curfew, and Ford admits it wasn't really on the table.
I've never been in favor of a curfew.
Despite the order to stay at home and avoid non-essential trips, non-essential shops are not shut down. They just can't open before 7 a.m. and must close by 8 at night.
When it comes to enforcement, we're allowing more police officers, more bylaw officers to implement fines for bad actors.
For more than a month, much of the GTA and Windsor have been under what the government called lockdown, and yet the COVID numbers just kept rising.
What it shows is that the shutdown was not enough. We need more stringent measures. The data is showing we're in a very dangerous situation now.
The new restrictions will halt some construction work, but there are a lot of exemptions. Residential construction is allowed to continue. Masks become mandatory indoors at all businesses, and outdoor gatherings are now limited to a maximum of 5. The reaction to the restrictions?
They do not go far enough, not even close. I mean, we're facing right now really a complete collapse of the healthcare system in the coming weeks.
The new measures take effect Thursday at 12:01 a.m. They're to last at least 4 weeks. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And some new hope tonight on the vaccine front. Canada has reached an agreement to buy enough new doses so that every Canadian can be vaccinated by September or possibly sooner. As David Cochrane explains, for provinces in the grip of the second wave, the vaccines can't come fast enough.
Appearing in front of the cameras for the first time since his supporters attacked the Capitol, President Trump took no responsibility for the chaos and shot back at his impending punishment.
We want absolutely no violence, and on the impeachment, it's really a continuation.
Our apologies, that's obviously not the story from David Cochrane. We'll try to get to that a little bit later. Well, this may not come as a surprise to anyone hoping to travel in the near future. The Canada-US border is going to remain closed until at least February 21st. Public Safety Minister Bill Blair today confirming the latest extension to international travel restrictions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Currently, anyone entering Canada with very limited exemption is required to self-isolate for 14 days on return. And as of January 7th, people entering the country are now required to present a negative COVID-19 test before boarding flights. The border has been closed to non-essential travel since last March. As parts of Canada experience a post-holiday surge in new COVID-19 cases, provincial governments are taking a variety of steps to try to lower the numbers and keep people safe. One Ottawa doctor continues to advocate for more rapid testing to get ahead of the virus.
Imagine if you're before coming into your Amazon factory or your meatpacking plant or your long-term care facility, you have a test done at home with the results within minutes. Like, this would be a huge mitigator of risk. And this is the conversations that I think we need to be having more, as opposed to, shutting down borders, curfews, outdoor masking.
The doctor also emphasizes the ripple effects of COVID-19 on the entire healthcare system, including the cancellation of elective surgeries, staff shortages, and the challenges in treating heart attack and stroke patients. Pandemic stress for some essential workers also means financial stress, especially those who can't take a day off to get a COVID test. As Jacqueline Hansen tells us, climbing caseloads are prompting renewed calls for paid sick days.
Rasheb Brown has worked at a grocery store in Toronto for more than 10 years, yet he worries staying home sick would cost him.
I won't be able to pay my rent, might end up on the street because I might burn through my savings, eventually. So yeah, it's very real for me.
He wants paid sick leave in case he needs to get tested for COVID-19.
Just having that reassurance that I'm going to get paid is like I'm not putting myself and other people in public at risk, right? I'm not putting my coworkers at risk.
But from retail to industrial work, many blue-collar employees don't have that option.
Most provinces in Canada, including Ontario, do not provide for paid sick days.
Some local politicians and health officials are calling for that to change.
I hear complaints every single day from constituents who are saying that this is something they need. This is a support that will make a difference in the spread of COVID-19.
Very simply, in September, the federal government introduced the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, $500 a week if a person can't work for at least half of their scheduled hours. But while cases of COVID have kept rising since then, approved applications for the sickness benefit have fallen from more than 60,000 a week in September to just 17,000 in December.
The sick leave benefit is very cumbersome, and workers, they have to apply for it. They have to know how to apply for it, have the ability to apply for it. They also have to wait.
Toronto's mayor wants both the federal and provincial governments to step up and do more.
I'm almost to the hair lighting on fire time with this, where the fact there has been no response from anybody about this.
But today, Premier Ford wouldn't budge.
We aren't going to duplicate areas of support,
leaving workers like Brown to choose between taking precautions and getting paid. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shuffled his cabinet today after Minister Navdeep Bains decided not to run in the next election. The ceremony, which had to be virtual because of the pandemic, saw 4 Liberal members taking on new roles.
In the presence of Her Excellency, the Prime Minister, and Canadians viewing this event, I invite the Honourable Marc Garneau to take the oath of office as Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Garneau moves into François-Philippe Champagne's old job in Foreign Affairs. Champagne is replacing Bains as Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. Omar Al-Ghabra, who's been promoted to cabinet, takes over transport from Garneau. The fourth change is Winnipeg MP Jim Carr returning to the cabinet table as a special representative for the Prairies. He had stepped aside for cancer treatments in 2019. U.S. health officials are entering a new phase in their vaccine rollout plan. It aims to help individual states rapidly distribute doses to people who need it the most. The goal is to assist states in vaccinating all people 65 and over, as well as any individual with comorbid or pre-existing conditions. It calls on states to expand vaccination sites beyond hospitals to pharmacies and other facilities. The U.S. government plans to release its entire vaccine inventory to individual states. That distribution will be based on each state's pace of vaccination and population of people 65 and over.
We clearly have enough vaccine at this point to begin to expand and get more and more of the vulnerable individuals in our country vaccinated. This is particularly important right now as we're seeing the post-holiday surge. We have many jurisdictions now that are on the verge of going from a linear growth to basically exponential growth. And we believe it's critically important at this time to get those most vulnerable people as quickly as we can into vaccination programs.
More than 38 million vaccine doses have been distributed so far in the U.S. Health officials say that right now, the U.S. vaccine inventory is greater than the current demand. Well, talk of impeaching Donald Trump is reaching a fever pitch in Washington, D.C. tonight. A defiant president lashing out earlier in the day, even as he faces an historic second impeachment vote. As Susan Ormiston reports, the momentum against him is building.
No regrets. Trump's take on his incendiary words last Wednesday.
They've analyzed my speech and my words and my final paragraph, my final sentence, and everybody to the T thought it was totally appropriate.
A parallel universe as Congress rushes toward another impeachment vote tomorrow, which will likely pass, accusing Trump of inciting an insurrection.
I think it's causing tremendous danger to our country, and it's causing tremendous anger.
Of his own making, says Chuck Schumer.
Blaming others for what he caused is a pathological technique used by the worst of dictators.
But in a sign of rising tensions,
and where the First Amendment doesn't say.
He's interrupted on the street.
As long as there's outrage and unrest in our hearts, there's going to be unrest in these streets.
Trump took a last stand today in Alamo, Texas, likely his last presidential trip, still hugely popular with his supporters. Going to the wall, a huge success, he says, which has cost U.S. taxpayers $15 billion.
The 25th Amendment.
Warning Democrats that trying to force him out will haunt President-elect Joe Biden.
The impeachment hoax is a continuation of the greatest and most vicious witch hunt in the history of our country, which is very dangerous for the USA, especially at this very tender time.
Republicans argue it could further tear at this country.
Let's be clear. Democrats have been wanting to remove President Trump from office since he won the election in 2016.
But there are already cracks. High-ranking Republican Liz Cheney says she will vote to impeach. There's never been a greater betrayal by a president of the United States of his office and oath to the Constitution. And the New York Times reports Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell believes Trump did commit impeachable offenses, setting the scene for a dramatic day here tomorrow.
Susan Ormiston reporting from Washington, D.C. tonight. And today, the FBI announced it has opened more than 170 case files in its investigation of the Capitol Hill attack, with dozens of charges already laid. D.C.'s acting attorney warns more will follow.
We're looking at significant felony cases tied to sedition and conspiracy.
Among those charged today is the fiercely pro-Trump son of a Brooklyn Supreme Court judge. Wearing an elaborate fur costume during the rampage, Aaron Mostovsky was charged with theft of government property, unlawful entry, knowingly impeding government business, and disorderly conduct. It was a mystery. How did a couple in the Toronto area get infected with the UK variant of COVID-19? Well, that problem has been solved, and why the couple is now facing charges. Coming up.
In the eastern part of the United States and in eastern Canada, there's little or no snow. On the ski slopes, that's disastrous for business. In the west, though, the ski business is booming. Georges Tramel reports.
Far above the morning fog still shrouding Vancouver, skiers are riding the gondolas on their way up to Grouse Mountain.
Clear skies and unlimited visibility. There is no new snow close to 153 centimeters at the Paradise Weather Station.
This week, the attendance record was broken on Grouse. 6,500 skiers were on the slopes last Monday. Across the province, the trend is the same. In Penticton, sales of season passes are up 30% from last year. A season pass cost $300. Big White and Kelowna, Whistler are maintaining the same level of sales as last year. On Vancouver Island, Mount Washington had sold all its passes by November. What is the secret? Well, it seems it still pays to advertise.
7 major ski areas out of Vancouver decided to join together and create a marketing force. We felt it was time to remind people that the skiing is a healthy sport, it's a great family sport, and it's a great outlet when you're faced with all the pressures of today. And I think that's paid off.
Obviously, advertising works. This skier came all the way from Chile.
Yeah, I usually come up here to Canada, different places. Why is that? I love it. Best to ski ever, anywhere else.
For others, it is simply a question of forgetting or sorting out the problems below.
Yeah, it's my sign of relaxing. To get away and just forget a lot of your problems that you have. And this is the place to be. It's the only place to be anyway.
It's your 4th lesson now, okay? And the future seems rather rosy. Grouse Mountain has the biggest ski school in Canada, and they have doubled the number of students they had last year. This season, 25,000 would-be Podborskis will be learning to go down the slopes.
The speculators and promoters were right. Whistler Village really has become a world-class resort. Lots of snow, lots of skiers. For the wealthy, Whistler is a great escape from this winter of discontent. But for the taxpayers of British Columbia, there are financial problems here as well. The province gave the municipality $10 million to service the land, plus 26 hectares of Crown land to be used as security for bank loans. But when the economy collapsed, the municipality was stuck with land it could not sell and $6.5 million worth of bank loans. They stopped construction on a convention center and recreation complex, they laid off staff, and then turned back to the provincial government for help. For the better part of a year, there was speculation about whether the province would bail out the municipality of Whistler. Would the politicians in Victoria risk the wrath of taxpayers by covering the debts of a ski resort while they were cutting back on hospitals, schools, threatening to lay off civil servants? Well, the speculation is over. Late this afternoon here in Vancouver, they called a press conference to say that, yes, BC will bail out Whistler.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Obviously, this is a shocking and despicable assault that occurred against a vulnerable and marginalized member of our community.
Vancouver police are asking for your help in tracking down a suspect and the victim after a sleeping homeless woman was set on fire. It happened at 4 o'clock in the morning, December 13th. Investigators say the woman woke up just in time to put the fire out and escape serious physical injury.
It's one of those low probability but very high consequence type avalanches that are spooky and somewhat uncommon at the coast, so people aren't as familiar with how to deal with them.
Experts are urging BC backcountry users to get or upgrade their avalanche skills training. There have been 3 fatalities tied to avalanches already this year. There are fears a flood of newcomers mixed with a troublesome snowpack could have deadly consequences. BC health officials are reporting 446 new cases of COVID-19 today and 9 more deaths. 368 people are in hospital, 72 of those patients in intensive care. There There are currently 5,045 active cases of coronavirus in our province, the lowest since November 9th. Part of those case numbers include the variant first reported in the United Kingdom, which is making its way across Canada. CBC News has learned the first 2 people in the country with it were diagnosed only because of a fluke. And as Jonathan Gatehouse explains, they are now facing some serious consequences.
Given the early evidence we have on this new variant of the virus, the potential risk it poses.
By the time Boris Johnson sounded the warning and Ottawa halted flights from the UK, it was already too late to stop the spread of the new variant to Canada. On Boxing Day, Ontario announced the country's first 2 cases, with a worrisome caveat that the Durham Region couple had no known travel history, exposure, or high-risk contacts. It turns out that wasn't true. The province later reported the couple had repeatedly failed to disclose close contact with someone who had recently returned from the UK. Now, CBC News has learned, they are facing charges.
We're all facing...
Kerry Bowman is a bioethicist at the University of Toronto's medical school.
That kind of deception is very, very serious indeed. And that's why it is important that this be dealt with in a way where the public can see how serious this is.
Durham Region Public Health won't name the couple or provide details about what tracing they've done in their workplaces, citing privacy laws. But CBC News has determined that these cases were only caught by chance. The lab processing the couple's positive COVID test chose to screen them for the variant at random, and that set authorities digging for an explanation. Apart from Saskatchewan, there's still no routine testing for the variant in Canada. It's typically done only in cases where there's a known connection to the UK.
I think it's important for people to understand how important it is to be open about recent travel, even though they think maybe that might get them into some trouble.
New modelling released today by the Ontario government predicts the variant could become the dominant strain in the province by March, causing case rates to double every 10 days instead of the current 40. So far, there are fewer than 24 confirmed variant cases in Canada, most of them in Ontario, though with only about 5% of positive COVID results currently being tested for the variant, the real number may be much higher. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a little bird that makes its home in the cliff banks of Prince Edward Island, but it's in trouble. How people are fighting to save the birds next. 6:41, a soggy look at downtown Vancouver tonight. It's a pretty ugly day on the south coast as we've been getting soaked by an atmospheric river, but there is some relief on the horizon. Johanna has the good news next.
It's one of those songs that I was like drawing inspiration from people I love around me, and then I realized this song actually was probably about me too. We're not always all okay.
This is CBC Music's The Intro, a weekly feature bringing essential emerging Canadian talent to the world. Hayley Blais is a Vancouver-based musician who has just dropped her debut album, Below the Salt. You may already know her from her other life as a YouTube star amassing over 16 million views for her cover songs and makeup tutorials. She's been writing and releasing songs for 4 years now. Her songs have evolved from bedroom pop anthems to confident rock and roll confessionals. Check it out here live. This is Hayley Blais with Firestarter.
Chose to
match to my desire. Never really noticed. I never really know what is it I require. Step back from the fire. I learn to keep my.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates. Rebate? Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
While many businesses across the country have had to adapt to provincial rules around when they can open or if they can even open at all, one small business owner in Winnipeg has decided to defy public health orders there and open his doors. Peggy Lamb has more on why he's doing it and what it's cost him.
Phil McClellan says it's not fair that big box stores like Walmart can open, but a business like his can't. He's 3 months behind in rent because of the recent lockdown. And with a family of 6 to feed, he says he can't stay closed anymore. So he reopened his shop.
Of course, I'm worried about being fined. I'm worried about feeding my family. I mean, I said it before and I'll say it again. A fine will take a back burner to me putting food in the mouths of my children. And, you know, if that's the government's response to somebody attempting to earn a living, then that'll be the government's response.
And that was exactly how the government responded. McClellan says today the province handed him a hefty fine of nearly $1,300.
I mean, at this point, the ticket is the same as a bill that comes in the mail, and I'll deal with it when I have to deal with it, but that's not today.
Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Brent Roussin says that he's sympathetic towards McClellan's situation, but the rules are in place for a reason.
The message from me has to be, don't violate the public health orders. I can't provide a message other than that. Certainly ensure you're taking advantage of any opportunities that are available in the short term.
McClellan says he did receive $5,000 from the government's bridge grant, but that's hardly enough for rent and living expenses. He painted and sold some art, but that wasn't enough either. He says he believes his shop can operate safely and knows there are many other small businesses who feel the same way. He says that despite the fine, he will remain open.
It really doesn't change. I still have a house to support. I still have kids to feed. I can't sit around and wait for either the bottom to fall out of my business and have nothing or whatever happens. So
Roussin says he will consider lifting restrictions once the COVID numbers start coming down further. But until then, small businesses have to hang on a little longer. Peggy Lamb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Johanna Wagstaff, thankfully back inside tonight. You know, I'm a big fan of rivers, any bodies of water, really.
Yes.
But this atmospheric river thing, it's got to move on. It's got to get out.
I agree. Yes. Yeah. No matter how much you love the water, this is a bit much. Tracking across the Pacific, it is coming down heavily across the South Coast right now. Let me start off with the watches and warnings in place across BC. Warnings for everyone in the colors there. Yellow for the west side of the island, Victoria and Vancouver, Metro Vancouver under the wind warning. Overnight and the first half of tomorrow is when we'll see those gusts. The strongest as that front passes overnight. We also have rainfall warnings for the North Shore and Howe Sound, snowfall for the central interior, and for the mountain passes across the southern interior as well. Let me take you through the timing. So heavy rain for the next few hours. We will see that front cross sometime around midnight. Behind it, clearing quite dramatically. Look as I pause this. at 7 a.m., we could already be seeing the front off to our east, but that's when those westerly winds will kick in. So not out of the woods yet. It's a windy first half of the day. We will see those winds die down after the noon hour, and we'll get to keep the sunshine as well. Thursday, we get to keep the sunshine and no big winds in the forecast. So Thursday is a good day, a calm day in between systems. It does look like we've got another system for Friday. Let me show you what that looks like. First of all, here's that cold front racing across the province. It's actually hopping over the Rockies, and it's going to cause a big, messy storm for Alberta, right across to Manitoba. Warnings are in place. We could be looking at shutdowns over the next couple of days along the Trans-Canada east of the Rockies. For us, we get high pressure behind that cold front. And there's Friday's system knocking at the door. Not a washout, though, at this point for the end of the week. Lots of sun across the province tomorrow. It is going to be windy. And behind that cold front, we'll see temperatures drop. So Kelowna, Cranbrook starting your morning off at a 5 or a 6, and then ending the day down around 1 as that cold front moves through. We will see our temperatures drop tomorrow as well down through the day, ending up around a 9 or an 8 or a 9, I should say. So yeah, heads up, 50 to 70 kilometer per hour gusts overnight tonight and through tomorrow morning. We may see some localized power outages because of all the saturated grounds. Trees and branches could come down through the first half of the day. We'll enjoy that sunshine and a break as we head into Thursday. So a very active West Coast, but Mike, I'm going to take us over to the East Coast now. A shorebird that lives in the cliffs along PEI's coastline is under threat, both from winter storms caused by climate change and from humans causing those cliffs to wear away.
As Nancy Russell explains, efforts are now underway to count bank swallows colonies and to protect them.
The bank swallows are gone now, migrated south for the winter. But last summer, all eyes were on them as staff from Island Nature Trust, watershed groups and volunteers explored hundreds of kilometers of PEI's coastline, looking for colonies of bank swallows nesting in the cliffs.
How high up the birds were nesting. We also tried to get a general idea of how many birds were at each colony and also how many active holes or burrows that they were using.
In 2017, the bank swallow was listed as a threatened species in Canada, its population down 98% over the last 40 years. Staff and volunteers were able to identify about 40 sites across the island along both the north and south shorelines. They also used a drone to see what was happening above the nests.
We noticed that there's a lot of mowing to the cliff. We also noticed a lot of motorized vehicle activity above there, and also we've noticed that there's very little cover vegetation that holds that cliff together.
Humans are having an impact on the bank swallow's habitat, and so is climate change. With less ice cover here on the North Shore, more high winds and winter storms causing damage to the nests.
After they've traveled coming back from their winter habitat, they're tired. So ideally, they will go and move back into the holes that they excavated last season, but when they have to redo their whole colony, it's pretty devastating for them.
Johnson says the staff at Island Nature Trust will continue to study the data and use it to come up with some best management practices for landowners to protect the bank swallows and their habitat.
Of course, we'd like to see the population to increase, but that will take years.
All eyes will be on these cliffs again in the spring to see what kind of shape they are in when the bank swallows return to the island. Nancy Russell, CBC News, New Frage.
Okay, it's only January, but this little girl has had quite enough, thank you, of winter. How the desire to help turned into bitter resignation. Next.
So here's a road that's quite narrow because of all the snow that we had. As you can see, when we've had this large amount of snowfall at one time, the streets get filled up with the snow. Residential streets are particularly challenging. You can see how it's forced the vehicles on the left side of the road to kind of park up on the embankment a little bit just because the road's narrow. You only have one lane of travel. Here's where you have this narrow road, so now you're looking ahead, well ahead, to sort of see any oncoming vehicles, because somebody has to be prepared to be patient and yield the direction of traffic to the other vehicle, because both can't occupy the road at the same time. There's no really regulation at that point. It's mostly cooperation between the two drivers, whether it's by the flashing of lights or by polite hand gestures just to indicate who's going to take precedence. So the one person ideally will wait for the other one to reach their point so that they can pass each other safely. If you're not too far into that road between intersections, you might be able to back away. As long as it's safe, and maybe put your hazard lights on so that people know what you're doing. Just back away and let the other car proceed down the roadway until they're past you. And if there was a vehicle just turning the corner to face us, here's where we would have to hopefully have them hold back and just be patient and wait for us to proceed up to this point where we can move over a bit and then create some space for them to have the road to their advantage. And if there's a path already started, try to stay in the path, because if you get off to the side, that large amount of fresh soft snow will probably begin to pull your wheels into the curb, and that's where you're probably going to wind up getting bogged down and getting stuck. Yeah, courtesy and patience, I find, are two of the key things that will just keep everybody a little bit calmer, and everybody gets where they want to go at the end of the day without any incidents such as collisions or even avoiding getting stuck in the snow and needing someone to help you get out.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Never miss out on a CBC contest, special series, or information. Make sure you sign up to our e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox. And CBC Vancouver is a proud sponsor of the Digital Inclusion of Isolated Mothers in Canada Conference, January 19th to the 20th. Join BC Today host Michelle Elliott on day 2 of the conference. Learn more at mothersmattercentre.ca.
Wildlife staff and students in the Atlantic are celebrating an amazing moment to kick off their year.
Yes, a snowy owl that was being cared for by a PEI veterinary college has recovered and has been released back into the wild. The owl was very thin and barely moving when it was found back in mid-December, but after some medical attention, it was soon up and about. During its 3-week stay, it nearly doubled its weight. Some holiday pounds there. Staff chose a secluded spot to release the owl and watch the now healthy bird fly off. Look at the wingspan.
Yeah, that's amazing. Those are some of my favorites, actually. Before we go, we head back to PEI. I love this one, where a young girl set out to give her mom a helping hand by shoveling their driveway in Charlottetown.
Yeah, nice gesture, but it didn't take her long to realize she's already had enough of winter. Have a look.
I can't do this.
That's how we feel too.
I can't.
How long have you been out here? 2 minutes?
I love it. It's hard work, you know.
I can't do it. That's what else is there to say? It me, it my son, it all of us, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that had to be one of the best pouty bottom lips I think I've seen
Yeah.
in a long time.
We'll try and recreate that tomorrow.
Thankfully, no shoveling snow here. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. Dan is here at 11 o'clock, right after the National.
Good night.